Hey everybody, Ron Burke from Gaming Trend here with Tony from Red Storm Entertainment. If you would, introduce yourself and tell us a little about the Division 2.
Sure, I'm Tony Stertzel, senior producer here at Red Storm on the Division 2.
So, obviously, this is the sequel to the Division. It's the 2. But what's new in Division 2?
Well, first and foremost, it's a new agent, new story, new city. We're taking you to Washington, D.C. this time. It's 7 months later, so the virus outbreak that happened in the first game has progressed.
No more snow.
That's right. You're now in the deep, sweltering summers of the South.
Yep.
And you've got a whole new set of tools and things to tackle the environment with, and the city is on the brink of collapse, and it's up to you to do what you can to save what remains.
So you guys have taken a completely new approach to the Dark Zones as well. You guys have kind of expanded the multiplayer aspects and kind of go into what's new with the Dark Zones, and I know there's more Dark Zones this time around.
That's right. There's actually 3 Dark Zones, so it's an entirely different context this time around because there is no epicenter. The Dark Zone was the epicenter in the first game.
Right, when they tried to contain it.
Right, and so this time around, there are 3 Dark Zones that each have their own narrative context and even gameplay feel and variety that tell their own stories, and as a player you get to unlock those throughout the 1 through 30 leveling campaign, and you get to start out by doing a safe group-only intro mission to kind of learn the lay of the land. We teach you a few of the mechanics, like if you've never extracted out of the Dark Zone before, you get to do that safely. And the premise is that you are the first agent to ever unlock that Dark Zone, and once you finish that introductory mission, it's now unlocked for all other agents to come to and from the Dark Zone. So those kind of get paced out through the 1 through 30 campaign, and they each have their own story, and players will get to do with it what they see fit.
Digging into the Dark Zone a little bit, you guys are doing a normalization this time around. So walk us through what that is and what does that mean?
Sure. So normalization is essentially the act of modifying some of your RPG stats in order to make sure that we have a little bit more of a fair playing field where progression doesn't negatively impact fair play. So if you've got 3,000 hours in the game and you've min-maxed your build night in, night out, you're not going to have this insurmountable advantage over players who only get to play a little bit more casually but have roughly the same gear and same tier of gear that you have. So what we do is we take, for example, your weapon stats. If you like assault rifles, we're going to take all the assault rifles and bring the same base damage output in line with each other, so that I don't necessarily have any more firepower than you have, and that's when player skill is kind of the main differentiator once we normalize everything. And we don't want it to be a black box, so we make sure that there's a view in game where you can toggle to view the normalized stats, so you know exactly what's happening to your build. Overall, the intention is still to respect all of your RPG choices, so if you like to build for an armor-heavy build and you want to make sure that is going to be retained, yes, we're not going to change those types of things. We're just going to tweak stats here and there to make sure everything is kind of filtered into a more narrow band of variety.
Okay, and then I remember you guys saying that there's also one Dark Zone that's not the case. Tell me about that.
Sure. Once you hit the end game, one Dark Zone can become occupied at a time. And when we say occupied Dark Zone, we mean that we ratchet up the difficulty of the PvE content in that Dark Zone, and we also throw all the rules out the window. So we recognize in our efforts to make a fairer Dark Zone overall, we've taken a lot of steps this time to be a little bit more inclusive for players in the overall Dark Zone experience. But we recognize that there are some players who really loved the Dark Zone from the first game, and we want to make sure they get that experience that they were attached to as well. So the occupied Dark Zone has no normalization. So every bit of your build counts. If you have 3,000 hours in the game, you are going to have an advantage over somebody who doesn't.
Sure.
And there's also no friendly fire is on, which means we don't have the rogue toggle system. And there's not even any rogue system at all, in fact. So any agent can fire on any agent at any time.
Including your own team.
Including your own team. So.
Yeah, that could get rough real quick.
Yeah, actually, in your group, I believe that you can't hurt your other group members, but you can fire at any other agent in any other group.
So you're also introducing a new multiplayer mode called Conquest. And I think this is the first time you guys
Conflict.
Conflict.
Sure.
And this is the first time you guys are building maps that are specifically made just for multiplayer. So
That's
it's
right.
not just something that exists in the world. How many maps are you guys planning on shipping, and what does that look like kind of post-game?
Yeah,
or post-launch, I should say.
We have 3 maps at launch, and those take you to parts of the city that you don't get to explore otherwise in the regular open world or campaign exploration. And we're really excited to be able to bring maps that are specific for PvP. We've always had at least a sort of dual purpose to the maps that we've had in any sort of PvP environment in the first game. Even when we did skirmish in the later updates from the first game, that map, those maps were used for resistance as well, which is a PvE kind of horde mode experience. So this time around, we get to really fine-tune things like sight lines, and we built all the maps before they were arted at all, and really iterated on them for PvP and making sure that they fit with the game modes that we had at launch. And yeah, we're of course going to expand under the umbrella of Conflict with more maps and modes and things like new experiences over the course of the post-launch. Absolutely.
Yeah, the map modes that are I should say the dark zones that we got to play 2 out of the 3, and I already felt kind of a short distance and a medium distance difference between the 2 modes that we got to play.
Yeah.
So you guys are already doing a good job in differentiating your maps. So
Awesome.
Good job on that.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. It was something that I think we were all excited to break out of the grid of Midtown Manhattan from the first game. You know, it had its charm, its sort of ominous, towering nature about it, but
Sure.
Being able to open things up a little bit more, see some longer sight lines, play with verticality, play with big, large interiors and things like that, like you see in DZ South, was a great challenge and a fun problem to solve for our level designers and our artists. And we really got to stretch our legs a little bit in terms of the variety in the biomes. They're very, very different. And when you get to play the third one, you'll see that it's got its own entire sort of charismatic nature about it as well.
So I know a lot of people are going to want to know this. The launch is in March, so I'm assuming you guys are planning some sort of beta. When can people expect to hear some news about that?
There will be more news soon about the betas, but you should definitely sign up, pre-order, do whatever you got to do to get involved. We want to make sure we get everybody's feedback, and we look forward to hearing what everyone thinks about the game.
That's one thing that I definitely have to say you guys did right with the Division is the connection that you guys had with the community. You guys clearly listened, and that's something that I have to say other Ubisoft properties have definitely benefited from as well. Like Rainbow Six Siege, same sort of thing, really good community engagement. Helped that game transform itself over the life of that product and even today. So yeah, I definitely applaud you guys for that, and I'm looking forward to seeing that same sort of thing in the Division 2.
Well, thank you, and we absolutely feel the same way. We wouldn't be here without the strength of the feedback and the buy-in that we have from our community. They've been with us all along the way, and we've had long, ongoing conversation since the betas from the first game, all the way until now through post-launch and public test servers and Elite Task Force and all these initiatives that we've done to make sure we stay involved and we're actively engaging in that conversation. And that's not going to be any different. We're only going to take all of those things further with the post-launch of the Division 2.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. And I guess we'll look to see more coming up on that March date for Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC.
That's right.
All right.
Cheers.
Thank you
Thanks
very much.
for coming.